Hey guys, Alex from 7th Hour Films back again with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Last time on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, we had Thankful Death Part 2, where basically Bucciarati took on both Prosciutto, yes, that was his name, and Pesci. And he threw Prosciutto off the train, but he survived. So then it was down to Pesci, and Pesci realized that he could be the ultimate killing machine or something. But then Prosciutto died, and then Bucciarati just absolutely murdered Pesci, and that was just kind of that. So also Trish has a stand, so there's that too. A stand that only now is manifesting, which is actually pretty interesting. So so they are on their way to somewhere else, and hopefully Mista has been revived or healed. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if Golden Wind heals or not. Maybe it does. I guess with the whole life energy stuff, maybe it can, but I don't know. We certainly miss the days of having Josuke around, where he can just heal people of their wounds, But oh well. But yeah, and then at the end we got one of the next hitmen who is after them. So yeah, that was pretty much it. Like always, the reaction is down in the description and in the pinned comment for your viewing pleasure. So let's go ahead and jump right into this episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Here we go. Okay, I'm all better. I am all better. I still absolutely hate Babyhead. He's a little bit better once you actually get into his powers and he actually gets his form and he starts talking and stuff. That it gets a lot better. Why on God's green earth, though, does he need to be a baby born of Bucciarati and some random bitch on a train? Why? Why is that a thing? Why not make it like... Why not make it, he got a sample... He got, a DNA sample of Bucciarati. So now he can use his stand at long range to track Bucciarati, and his way of, consuming or taking, he can use it to kill, or he can use his power to capture. That's a really interesting thing. But the fact that it is all tied to forcing a woman to birth a stand. You went a little too far, and now it's useless. Absolutely useless. It's still a little tricky. It's still a little tricky when it's just, you need a DNA sample, because if you didn't have that, you'd be SOL. But the fact that it is intrinsically tied to forcing a woman to give birth to a stand, and to teach, you have to sit there and you have to teach it the things, and you have to program it all in and stuff, that is just about the north side of useless. Like, what you get from that does not justify the amount of work you have to put in to get your results. That does not justify it at all. So if you take out the stupid, freaky, disgusting part that serves no purpose rather than to be stupid, freaky, and disgusting for, shock value, I guess. Don't do that, and suddenly it's a much better stand. You don't have to go the extra mile. You're fine at the miles you're at sometimes, Sometimes just go with a good idea. Don't go that extra mile, because sometimes that ain't a good extra mile, and that was not a good extra mile. But this is not the terrible episode I was afraid this was going to be. This was a pretty decent episode, and it's an episode of JoJo. Giorno is fighting somebody. When was the last time Giorno, and I mean only Giorno, fought somebody? Because, well, yes, Mirror Man, he did help out, but it was a group effort between him, Fugo, and Abakio. Prior to that, it was Pulpo. This is the first solo Giorno fight since Pulpo. And even then, he had Koichi. Granted, Koichi didn't do a lot in that fight. I will grant Koichi is useless like that. But still. So if you want to go even further back than that, the last time that Giorno had a solo fight, it was him and his enemy, was when he fought Bucciarati. That's it. And that is disgraceful. As much as I enjoy the team, and I really enjoy the team, it's probably one of, if not my favorite team on JoJo. I love this team. Bucciarati, Mista, Abakio, Narancia, Fugo, and obviously Giorno. I really love the team, but oh my god, would you let it be JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? For God's sake. And credit to this episode, even though I absolutely hate Babyhead. Credit, it's a Giorno episode. It is an episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I haven't watched JoJo in so long. But here we are. We finally did it. It's a JoJo episode. A JoJo episode. Not a Bucciarati episode. Not anyone else. Not he who shall not be named, though I did name him about 2 minutes ago. Nothing else. It is a JoJo episode. Thank God. And, at the very least, it will continue into the next episode. Now I'm okay with that. Even though this isn't a part 1, so presumably it's not going to be all of next episode on this guy. But we will at least continue Giorno's fight. Thank friggin' God. I mean, for God's sake. When he mentions like, oh, I need to learn more about Trish's powers. It might give me some insight into the boss's powers. Like, oh yeah, the plot. Remember that? Remember how the whole thing is supposed to be Giorno rising through the ranks so that he can, depose the boss and become head of the Passione so that he can bring prosperity to Italy? We haven't had the main plot in so long. And I'm conflicted. I will admit I'm conflicted. Because I do enjoy the team. They make up for the shortcomings of the Hitman team. And quite frankly, there are shortcomings with the Hitman team. Granted, compared to some of the stand fights, some of the useless stand users we had in part 4, I guess these guys are okay. Again, it's sort of an every other, Like, the first guy kind of sucked, but then Mirror Man was interesting, and then Prosciutto was okay, but Pesci kind of sucked. This guy himself is hit and miss. Like, I hate how his stand, like, what a worthless, terrible, dysfunctional stand you have to have, Now, I will say, I understand why it has sentience. We'll at least give it that. what an awful, like, I have to go through this whole process where I force a woman to give birth to a stand, and then I have to teach it all these things. Oh, this is the lion. He's the king of the jungle, and then these are the things that children play with, and blah, 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 blah. And you have to spend, like, 20 minutes on this. You have to spend time teaching this child. And it's just... I don't know. But there is the DNA tracking. I like that. That makes sense. You have a DNA sample and you use that to track via DNA. That's great. I don't know why you had to, like, stand rape a woman. I don't care if she's a bitch. Why don't stand rape a woman? Like, what the fuck? Like, this feels like Araki came up with all of this, and then he got stoned and was like, yo, have you ever thought about, like, how babies are made? And then he just, in his stoniness, wrote down this entire plot, and the next day he was like, what the fuck? I had this whole thing about DNA tracking and splitting up into objects and things, and, you know, becoming different objects and stuff, and how that's really interesting when compared to Golden Wind, you know? Like, I have all these really cool ideas and stuff. Why the fuck did I get high and write this whole thing about stand raping a woman so that she gives birth and shit? Like, what are you doing? Why? Did you have, like, 5 pages to fill or something? Just have a tracking stand. Remember, these are hitmen. These are hitmen. How many of them have been useful hitmen? Remember that. You've got the guy who can shrink things and assassinated a dude by exploding a car through his stomach. Good job. Subtle, like a hitman. The Mirror Man, I will admit, you know, close someone off from the rest of their world, kill them, get out of there, I guess. You know, no one, if they just die in that world, nobody's any the wiser. Okay, sure. The aging, I can see the application for. It's kind of convoluted, but it kind of works. The fishing pole, I guess on some level I can understand. On some level I can understand it, but it's just kind of weird. And in a proper stand fight, it's useless. And now this guy, it's like, okay, you can track your target. You can track your target, and you send this nigh unbeatable thing that, you know, transforms into inanimate objects and stuff, and that's all really interesting, you know? But you have to stand rape a woman. Why? Why? That's not useful. That is such a pain in the ass. But once it goes, it's okay. Once it goes, it's okay. The fight with Giorno was really interesting. I love how, you know, this guy's ability is to turn things into inanimate objects. It is the opposite of Golden Wind's power. So I like that gives Giorno the idea to make new body parts. He fixes his foot, he fixes his throat, he fixes his eye. And he does it all using inanimate objects, and he turns them exactly into his parts, basically. And luckily, he can just slot them right back in, and they work, you know? Which, also, I assume that the reason he can just slot them back in and they work is Golden Wind is also, like, connecting those parts to his body so that they do work, you know? Which means, at least I think, that means that Golden Wind works on Giorno, which is great. Shining Diamond never worked on Josuke, so luckily he doesn't have that problem here. But that is really interesting. and he purposefully let Golden Wind lose an arm, and this also shows that Golden Wind's power works on Golden Wind, basically. Well, I guess it's just that he lost an arm, but he turned his physical arm, not Golden Wind's arm, he turned his physical arm into the piranha. And presumably he can... Well, yeah, he can. We've seen that he can transform stuff back to the way they were, basically. So that's really interesting. I like that, you know? And for Golden Wind, who I always think this thing it's a little complicated, and it seems like it'd be difficult to write for, but I give Araki credit that is really, really clever. That's really interesting. Araki has times like that where he's really, really interesting. A lot of the times he creates stands that are really, really interesting. And then for some reason, he'll just create shit. And that was shit. So I'm kind of torn. On this episode, but whatever. I also like the whole exchange of like, oh, well, we'll use this closet as a bathroom. Like, that was kind of funny. Yeah, he just made a freaking hole in the ground. That was kind of funny. He doesn't know where this dimension is. Luckily, these zips aren't all connected to each other, or else the next time he opens one up, there's just piss and shit coming out. Ugh. So that was kind of funny. So yeah, it's interesting. Okay, at what point did this episode get interesting? About the halfway point, this got interesting. I love the whole thing of Giorno messing with all the cars. So if all the cars are gone, they're looking for every car, which gives them more time. So I thought that was clever. The exchange between Bucciarati and Trish was really funny. And then, yeah, the whole fight between Giorno and Babyhead was interesting. So about the second half of this episode got really good and really interesting. The first half was shit, but the second half was really good. So I guess we'll just have to take what we can get. And hey, it's an episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and quite frankly, I've been missing that for so long. So long. Even though I love the team, I want more of Giorno. Oh, well. You know, the problem is this is the exact same complaint I had in part 4. And if anything, it's getting a bit worse. At least the team is a lot better. Like, look, I like Okuyasu, I like Rohan, and I like Jotaro, but I like the part 5 team better, first off. I like the part 5 team better. But I want this to be JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And with every passing episode, I get the feeling that I'm never going to watch that again. You know? Like, as far as I can tell, JoJo ended in part 2. And now it's everybody but. It's everybody but JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. You know? Oh well, I guess take what I can get. Even though the first half was shit, the second half was really good. And that's where we're going to have to leave it. So yeah. With all that being said, I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around to any of those. There's a playlist for all of my JoJo's Bizarre Adventure reactions, as well as another playlist, or video, or something that you can go click on if you want. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.